during working hours, with deliveries available Monday to Sunday until 9 p.m. Stay cool and comfortable all summer long. Visit Top Choice Appliances today. TCA, simply the best.
Shake off humans in the house. Shake off years of dodgy connectivity. Double your bandwidth, surf with agility. Gibraltar's #1 Wi-Fi's here. What are you waiting for when you can switch and save this year? Terms and conditions apply.
Well, it's a gigabit, not a gigabit. When the promise speed just doesn't quite hit.
They say it's fast, but the truth surprises when they won't reach your wireless devices.
It's a gigabit, not a gigabit. When the promise speed just doesn't quite hit.
They say it's fast, but the truth surprises when they won't reach your wireless devices.
Is GBC News, the headlines. A historic day for Gibraltar as the UK-EU treaty is finally signed today in Brussels. Provisional implementation will begin from midnight, the end of immigration controls at the frontier. The UK-Gibraltar Concordat is also signed with safeguards on treaty termination. GBC will bring you coverage through to midnight when a new era begins. Good evening and welcome to a special GBC News Bulletin on a historic day for the ROC. The future UK-EU relationship treaty has been signed and is just hours away from provisional implementation. Over 10 years from Brexit, after lengthy and intricate negotiations, Gibraltar's future is now taking tangible shape at last. Works have been carried out in recent weeks ahead of the removal of frontier controls at midnight tonight. And GBC is here to bring you coverage throughout this evening on the Gibraltar and Spain sides of the frontier as it approaches a new era. Earlier today, that treaty between the United Kingdom and the European Union was signed by Europe Minister Stephen Doughty and European Commissioner for Trade and Security Maros Sefcovic. Chief Minister Fabian Picardo and Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Álvarez were also present for the culmination of a decade of negotiations involving the UK, the EU, Gibraltar and Spain. The UK-Gibraltar Concordat was also signed, providing safeguards on any move to terminate the treaty. Our news editor, Christine Vasquez, was in Brussels and brings us this look back at today's momentous events.
It's been a busy but successful day in Brussels, and I think Gibraltar can tick that box and say that this part of the job is done. The treaty is now signed and ready to be presented to both the UK and EU parliaments for ratification. We understand that this will be in the autumn. And this goes ahead with the guarantee that Gibraltar sought from the UK. Nothing on Gibraltar without Gibraltar, based on that double lock guarantee, no negotiations over Gibraltar with which the people aren't content with. And Gibraltar has now been given a say on what happens next. It's a big step in a 5-year negotiation and one which opens the doors for the next stage. So the Concordat now will be presented before the Gibraltar Parliament. That's probably happening on Thursday. But these are just the politics. This is Brussels. The real effects of what happens with the treaty will be felt as from tomorrow on the ground.
And with the signing of the treaty and its imminent implementation, Gibraltar Airport becomes the southernmost entry point into the Schengen area. And we are just moments away from the Gibraltar delegation landing on the ROC after the signing of the treaty in Brussels. Jonathan Sacramento joins us from the airport live. Jonathan.
Thank you, Shalina. Yes, there is a real sense of anticipation here at the air terminal for 3 reasons. The first one is because the air terminal is an essential cog in the treaty works. It's one of the main areas of negotiation and one of the most important factors in this agreement, but also because supporters are gathering here ahead of the Chief Minister's arrival and his return from Brussels, his triumphant return, shall we say. So these aren't just party supporters. His cabinet of ministers is here waiting as well, and there are friends and family anticipating his arrival. The third reason, just before I forget it, is because there's a reception here later on at around 10:30. It's a private reception hosted by the government for local guests, and it's to celebrate the imminent implementation of the treaty. So for those present, this is being treated as a bit of a political homecoming. Fabien Picardo has made securing this treaty the central task of the last 10 years. And supporters will see this as a culmination of difficult years of negotiation. He returns with the agreement signed and the provisional implementation just hours away. So that's what's happening here at the airport. It's, as we said, imminent. His flight is expected in the next 20-30 minutes. So we'll keep you posted as to when he does arrive.
Thank you, Jonathan. We look forward to hearing more from you at the airport there. Well, it is a momentous day for Gibraltar and for the wider Campo area, as well as for UK-Spain relations. We've seen some of the key areas that will be affected, the frontier and the airport, and of course the moment the treaty became a reality signed earlier today. The flight carrying the Gibraltar delegation, as Jonathan mentioned, is landing on the Rock shortly on its way from Brussels. I'm joined now by my colleague, Ros Estengo. Ros, good to see you.
Good evening, Shalina.
So that flight is on its way back. What do you think the atmosphere is like coming back to the Rock with a signed treaty after all this time?
I would hazard a guess it's huge relief. We've just been hearing Jonathan Sacramento and also Christine talking about the years and years of really, really tough negotiations, and it's been really incredibly tense recently as well. It's interesting, it's about fluidity of movement. Well, it's been fluidity of the story as it's emerged. And Christine told a very funny story on radio, I think it was yesterday. Things were changing so rapidly that she was in Morrison's, in the vegetable counter, and taking instructions about what was happening. And she started off with the cucumbers, and by the time she got to the bananas, everything had changed.
No.
So can you imagine dealing with that level of constant change? You know, when you consider that Gibraltar's future rests on this treaty, a no-deal treaty, a no-deal a Brexit would have been absolutely disastrous for the economy. We have heard over and over and over again. So a huge amount has been rested on it. We know that it's taken a huge toll on the lives of the individuals who've been negotiating it. We've heard the Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Minister, the Attorney General all talking about how it's consumed their lives and how much has been at stake. So I would definitely say huge relief, but no doubt Christine will tell us more when we speak to her.
Absolutely. And do you think it is a case of, you know, that relief and now a bit of a pause, or does the work only just continue now?
I think it goes straight into Parliament on Thursday, and also everyone's going to be keeping their eye on the frontier. How is it working? How, you know, because you can have as much detail on paper as you want.
Exactly, until it's applied.
Until it's applied, you're never really, you know, going to see. And I suppose it will be a novelty at first. I imagine tonight we'll be seeing lots of people at the frontier, as we did in 1985 when the frontier reopened, and they will want to see history in the making. This is
it is history in the making.
History. Today will be spoken about for decades to come, I'm sure, and it will change the way we live our lives here. It changes our relationship with the EU, but it's also changed our relationship with the UK, because as we've seen, Gibraltar has been at the table with the EU, with the UK, with Spain, and Gibraltar has been a sort of equal partner at that table. So that's also changed that relationship.
And the Concordat was an essential part of the puzzle for it all, wasn't it? And it was signed just before the treaty today. I know you've done a bit of research on that. Would you like to unpack it for us?
Well, we have received a copy of the Concordat, and I am going to unpick it. But thankfully, Sir Peter Caruana will be here with us afterwards,
sure
giving
he'll
us some analysis. But there is a line in the Concordat that has caused a little bit of concern. Stephen Doughty has sought to give assurances through a letter that he's sent. But like I say, well, we can unpack that with Sir Peter when he joins us afterwards.
I look forward to hearing more on that. And just looking back on today's events, as we mentioned, the Concordat was signed first. Just talk us through the day in Brussels. What have we seen so far?
Well, it was the Concordat. I mean, we saw that the team from Gibraltar flew out on their private plane this morning, and the Concordat was absolutely a key piece of the jigsaw, the Chief Minister has said. Without that, he has said that he would not have permitted or approved of the treaty being signed. So that was a huge moment, and it only came an hour before the actual treaty was signed. So that was a very symbolic moment. We saw it live. We were able to patch into live here at GBC. And then it's back to Gibraltar. There is celebrations this evening, but I really do think it will be straight back to work tomorrow.
Well, I guess that's the real test of it all. But it will be very strange to just go across what we did know as the border without needing to show a passport.
I actually got quite emotional about it when I was talking about it at lunchtime today with Kellyanne. It is really, I don't think we can really understand how significant this is. And I think the first time anyone goes across that border, you know, they might.
That's when it will hit you.
That's when it will hit them. But yeah. I think it'll be quite nice not to have to give your passports in to be checked.
Or go back when you forget your passport.
Yeah, and hopefully no long queues. You know, hopefully that's a consign to the past. We'll see.
It's strange though, because that's become very much a part of our daily life. You know, if you're going to Spain, you check the queue. How long is it? What should we do to delay that? And, you know, just not having to anticipate that at all. It's just a really strange feeling.
It is, but I also think there's another thought process that many people are sort of undergoing this evening, and that is this new relationship with Spain. And we've had a lot of email reactions in. We'll be reading some of those later on in the programme. But there's a lot of concern out there still. And we spoke to Adolfo Canepa, the former Chief Minister, earlier on, and he said, well, you know, he remembered those same concerns when the frontier opened back then. So it's natural. We're stepping into the unknown, and people are naturally going to be concerned about it. We'll see over the next few days how things play out. But we'll be certainly looking at some of those reactions later on in the programme.
I believe the plane is landing in just a few minutes.
Exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting, isn't it? There must be a nice atmosphere on that flight back after getting it all done. Because Christine mentioned, I think, in one of her interviews, you know, the amount of times that they'd go to Brussels and come back empty-handed.
Yeah, so many
you just didn't know. And I guess, you know, even going today, what if something happened at the last minute, you know, some change from Spain?
Yeah, you did. I mean, with the other occasions, you did have a sense that, oh, I'm not really sure if this is going to go over the line or not. But on this occasion, yeah, this was definitely happening. I mean, I don't think there was any doubt that it was going to be signed today.
Yeah. Despite the delay from April, it was originally set to be a few months ago.
I don't think we would have been ready for April, so I think it's been a blessing in disguise.
And do you think we're ready now?
I don't know. We'll have to ask the Chief Minister. But certainly, you look at the photographs and the videos of the frontier, and it's not as it will look when all the work is done in that area. We've seen the CGI images of what the plan is to change the area, make it a little bit more attractive for when people come into Gibraltar. At the moment, it just looks like everything has been stripped away. Tonight, of course, the symbolic removal of the fence, and I think that will really hit home for a lot of people, because we've been talking about this for so many years. It's almost like, is this really happening?
But you just can't imagine life in Gibraltar without the fence, no?
Yeah.
It's always been there.
I know. It is going to be very, very strange.
You know what will be interesting as well? That first flight back to Gibraltar, those passengers trying out the new route into Gib.
Well, I am flying out of Gibraltar on Treaty Day.
So you can do a reporter pick for us from the airport.
Possibly do it here, but I think the real difference is when you come in, because then you are going to have to do those Schengen checks.
Yes.
And some people might be slightly alarmed at seeing Spanish officials, but they are there fulfilling their Schengen duties. This is a Schengen external Schengen border. They are the Schengen member responsible for it. Gibraltar isn't part of Schengen. We're giving access to Schengen, and that's why those officials are there. We've just seen some very symbolic images there of the European Commissioner for Trade and Security, Maros Sefcovic, there with the Spanish Foreign Minister, José Manuel Álvarez. We had Stephen Doughty, the Minister for Europe, and obviously Fabian Picardo there at the table. And that is the first time, these negotiations are the first time that Gibraltar has been there. And I think that is probably one of the most significant things about this, because it has forever changed our relationship, not just with the EU, not just with Spain, but also with the UK. There's a new maturity about the relationship.
Yeah, I think we've just got images of the flight
look
arriving.
at that. How dramatic.
Sorry to interrupt you, Roz. But yes, that's the Gibraltar delegation landing on the Rock in just a few seconds, I imagine, after a very successful trip to Brussels.
Isn't it good that there are no crosswinds and there's
oh God, can
no
you imagine if they were diverted?
There we go. Here
we go. Let them touch ground
down
before you say it.
And it's done. And it's done. And I'm having thoughts of Peter Isola and Sir Joshua Hassan returning from the UN. Do you remember in 1967 after their visit to the UN? And it is almost that sort of moment, isn't it? Where
a lot of people waiting for them to speak to them after.
I would imagine there are some people there, probably not quite the scenes that we saw. There are concerns, obviously, about this, and people are concerned about it. But I'm sure that there is a reception there. We know that there is going to be a party there tonight with VIPs, and Jonathan Sacramento will have his ear on the ground. He will be speaking to some of the ministers tonight. We'll be getting some reactions from them. And Sir Joe Bolsan, of course, he's been in politics for over 50 years now, so he has been through a tremendous change in the relationship with the UK at a time when they still treated Gibraltarians as colonials, and the relationship has matured so significantly since then. He was part of that fight as well to give Gibraltar its voice. Sir Adolfo Canepa was there with Sir Joshua Hassan when he did as well, and the AACR was all about giving Gibraltarians a voice. And, you have to think of Sir Joshua Hassan on a day like today as well, because he would have been, I think, very pleased at the developments.
Yeah.
And certainly Adolfo Canepa, despite some reservations.
Of course.
Also.
Well, the price and the prize, no, as Sir Peter put it, which I'm sure we'll chat to him about later.
Yeah.
But for now, the flight has just landed. I'm sure there's a lot of cheering on board as they touch down on the Rock with that all-important signed treaty. Well, the Chief Minister says he is delighted that the treaty has now been signed, and the Spanish Foreign Minister says this is an agreement that puts coexistence first and guarantees the free movement of people and of goods. José Manuel Álvarez and Fabian Picardo spoke to the media in Brussels earlier today.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be able to say that we have today concluded and signed the treaty between the United Kingdom and the European Union in Gibraltar. About time, but the time had come. The treaty was now the right treaty, and I am delighted that we have been able to reach this milestone and that we move forward from here.
Acabamos de firmar el histórico acuerdo respecto a Gibraltar, que abre una nueva era para las relaciones entre el campo de Gibraltar y Gibraltar, una nueva era en la relación bilateral entre España y el Reino Unido y que cierra definitivamente el Brexit, la última pieza que faltaba, y que abre también una nueva era de relación entre la Unión Europea y el Reino Unido. Este acuerdo garantiza para siempre la libertad de circulación de personas y de mercancías. Evita distorsiones del pasado en materias como la de fiscalidad o la de medio ambiente. Trae una nueva conectividad al campo de Gibraltar con esa gestión conjunta del aeropuerto y abre toda una nueva senda de oportunidades. Permite al campo de Gibraltar dar un salto un salto hacia adelante en el futuro, en un futuro prometedor. Quiero agradecer a todas las personas que me han acompañado durante estos 5 años de intensas negociaciones. Al secretario de Estado de Unión Europea, al secretario de Estado de Asuntos Exteriores, al embajador, representante permanente aquí en Bruselas, al secretario general para la Unión Europea, al director de mi gabinete, del gabinete del ministro de Asuntos Exteriores y también muy especialmente a Maroš Šefčovič, al comisario que ha llevado junto conmigo esta negociación día a día, que siempre ha creído en ella, y a todo su equipo. Y también quiero agradecer al Reino Unido y a Fabián Picardo y a todo su equipo la buena disposición y la buena fe con la que se sentaron a negociar durante todos estos años para lograr lo que ha sido durante tanto tiempo un anhelo para todas las personas, los 300.000 andaluces del campo de Gibraltar. Este acuerdo, que por fin es una realidad, es un éxito para el campo de Gibraltar, un éxito para Andalucía, un éxito para España y un éxito para Europa.
Se ha discutido lo político, pero ¿estáis preparados para mañana, para que esa frontera caer?
Todo está preparado. Mañana, de hecho, acompaño al presidente del Gobierno a un momento que va a ser un momento de felicidad, un momento emotivo, un momento que va a marcar el inicio de esa nueva era. Llevamos muchos meses trabajando a ambos lados de la verja para que desaparezca por fin, y hoy, a partir de las 0 horas de esta madrugada, eso ya es una realidad, el último muro de Europa continental. Y en estos momentos de cambio, en estos momentos tan complejos en el mundo, en estos momentos donde parece que el conflicto, la fuerza, en muchas ocasiones incluso la guerra, es la única forma de alcanzar objetivos de política exterior, hemos demostrado que la política exterior de España se ocupa de los intereses concretos de nuestros ciudadanos, como es el caso de los 300.000 andaluces del campo de Gibraltar, y que la cooperación es más poderosa que la confrontación. Dejamos atrás nada más y nada menos que 3 siglos. 3 siglos marcados por la desconfianza y la confrontación, y ahora avanzamos. Aquellos que vivían espalda contra espalda, como era Gibraltar y el campo de Gibraltar, avanzan juntos hacia un futuro lleno de oportunidades.
Ministro, ¿cómo quedan las reivindicaciones de soberanía de España sobre el peñón de Gibraltar tras este acuerdo?
Absolutamente tal y como estaban, pero además absolutamente salvaguardadas. Muy rápidamente, el artículo 2 de ese acuerdo lo deja muy claro. La reclamación de soberanía de España no cambia ni un ápice. Pero también le digo, este acuerdo era para resolver problemas concretos de nuestros ciudadanos. Este es un acuerdo que apuesta por la convivencia. Y todos los objetivos de España, los hemos cumplido con este acuerdo. Hemos garantizado la libertad de movimiento de personas y de mercancías. Removemos distorsiones del pasado en medio ambiente, en fiscalidad. Garantizamos y protegemos nuestra reclamación de soberanía y, sobre todo, damos un salto hacia adelante en convivencia. Este es un acuerdo que apuesta por la convivencia, que se siente ya. Si hablan ustedes con todas las personas del campo de Gibraltar, todo el mundo le dirá: este era el acuerdo que queríamos. Muchas veces dicen: este es el acuerdo con el que soñábamos y pensábamos que no lo conseguiríamos, ya está aquí. Al final nuestros ciudadanos apuestan por la convivencia, porque la convivencia es el futuro.
Ministro, este acuerdo ha sido muy difícil de negociar. En la práctica, ponerlo en una práctica que va a requerir de las diferentes partes. Y quería preguntarle también, en la posición del Partido Popular, Vox ha sido muy crítico de este acuerdo. ¿Tiene un mensaje para ello?
Mire, en la práctica va a ser un acuerdo fácil porque hemos negociado durante mucho tiempo, cada uno con firmeza en sus posiciones, y eso garantiza que es un buen acuerdo. Va a ser fácil ponerlo en práctica porque yo creo que hace ya muchas décadas la gente del campo de Gibraltar y de Gibraltar querían este acuerdo. Y yo estoy convencido que empezando hoy mismo a las 0 horas, con mucha rapidez, la gente lo que se va a preguntar es ¿pero por qué no lo hicimos antes? ¿Cómo era posible que hasta ahora viviéramos de esta manera? Y a las personas del Partido Popular y de Vox que no han querido acompañar este tratado, no todos. Debo de decir que el presidente de la Junta de Andalucía siempre me mostró públicamente y en privado su apoyo por este acuerdo, pero aquellos que no estaban a favor del acuerdo le diré que aunque ellos no lo sepan, ellos también han ganado, porque este es un acuerdo a favor de los 300.000 andaluces del campo de Gibraltar, de sus intereses y de su futuro. Y porque al final cooperar, invertir en convivencia, crear convivencia como este tratado solo puede redundar en beneficio de España. Tal vez ellos no lo saben todavía, pero este acuerdo también es para ellos, también es para su convivencia y ellos, como españoles, también han ganado.
And we bring you more reactions on this historic day, including what it means for relations between Gibraltar and Spain. Our reporter, Kevin Ruiz, is in La Línea and he's joined by the former director of the Instituto Cervantes in Gibraltar, Francisco Oda. Kevin.
Yes, good evening from La Línea, and joining us now is a man who many of you might recall for his last capacity in Gibraltar as the director of the Instituto Cervantes. Joining us now is Professor Oda, Francisco Oda. Francis, buenas noches, buenas tardes, gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Francis, le comentaba a nuestra audiencia que muchos te recordarán por tu rol en el Instituto Cervantes en Gibraltar, pero quizá poco se acuerden de que quizá podemos llamarte, yo creo, un pionero de las relaciones transfronterizas. Estamos hablando ya una veintena de años, por allá 99-2000, cuando fuiste director del Instituto Transfronterizo, que abogaba por precisamente lo que vamos a ver hoy, ¿no? Exacto. Esa buena vecindad, buenas relaciones transfronterizas, ¿no? ¿Cómo se siente en un día como hoy?
Pues hombre, emocionado, ¿no? Yo creo que todos los que hemos estado apostando por la cooperación, por encima de cualquier otra cosa, y por las personas, por el conocimiento, por tender puentes, pues hombre, es un día muy emocionante. Y por tanto esto para Gibraltar y para la línea pues es algo muy especial, ¿no? Esta frontera que ha estado levantada 117 años, pues no... Cualquiera que viene ve una frontera, pero para la mayoría de las personas que vemos aquí, pues es una biografía para cada una de las personas, ¿no? Porque esto ha, digamos, organizado la vida cotidiana de los gibraltareños y los de la línea durante 117 años. Y entonces, no sé, es como algo mágico de repente comprobar que esto no va a existir, ¿no? Que esa verja, esa frontera se va a trasladar ahora al aeropuerto como frontera exterior de la Unión Europea y por tanto es una época nueva. Y es verdad, como tú bien dices, nos conocimos en el año 99 con esa propuesta que hicimos con el Instituto Transfronterizo del Estrecho de Gibraltar, que fue la primera iniciativa pública entre el gobierno de la Diputación de Cádiz, acuérdate, sí, y el gobierno de Gibraltar, que era entonces el ministro Bernardo Linares, que fue siempre un maestro, ¿verdad?, y que le guardo un gran cariño, como tú seguro.
Para decir una de las cositas bonitas y que dice, siempre has defendido las personas, la historia de Gibraltar, la línea, las personas sobre todo. Quizá por eso haya fracasado otros proyectos, entre ellos el ITEC, ¿no? El Instituto Transfronterizo también. Fracasó, quizá una palabra fea, pero que no llegaron a su potencial. Y quizá también por eso lo vimos con el Acuerdo de Córdoba. Quizás exista ese temor de que a día de hoy este nuevo acuerdo, esa cosilla puede que no haga, no realizarlo su potencial.
Bueno, nadie lo sabe, no tengo la bola de cristal, ya me gustaría tenerla, pero realmente el Instituto Transfronterizo, por ejemplo, en cuanto que gente que no es de la zona, que no es de Gibraltar, que no es de la línea o del campo de Gibraltar, empiezan a trabajar en estas cuestiones, generalmente, como no conocen la realidad de la zona, pues inventan otras cosas, ¿no? Y finalmente pues puede fracasar porque la desconfianza pues aparece, ¿no? Bueno, ¿qué sabemos de este tratado que a las 0 horas pues va a tener su efecto aquí? Pues en realidad, hombre, tenemos las instituciones de la Unión Europea detrás, que ha firmado este acuerdo con el Reino Unido. Evidentemente las españolas también están como parte de la Unión Europea. Y esto le da también una solidez importante, más allá del momento concreto. tenemos 4 años que vamos a poner en práctica todo esto, porque yo creo que es ahora cuando realmente empieza lo difícil, a encajar todo este acuerdo que tiene más de 1000 páginas y que hay que desgranar una a una. Es ahora cuando realmente vamos a tener que poner en marcha pues todo lo que se dice ahí. Entonces, yo confío de nuevo en las personas, en las que van a llevar a cabo todo esto, porque ten en cuenta la cantidad de personas que han estado trabajando hasta ahora para que esto sea hoy día una realidad. No solo ya los 5 años y medio de negociación, sino los equipos de Gibraltar, los equipos de España, los de la Unión Europea, interministeriales, en fin, ha sido una barbaridad, ¿no? Y bueno, pues yo confío en que todo sirva para que al menos tengamos estabilidad y no tengamos incertidumbre, que ya hemos tenido bastante durante todo este tiempo, ¿no?
Francis, otro de los trabajos tuyos, la tesina, la herencia oblicua, Gibraltar, la herencia oblicua, hace el análisis sobre la identidad de los gibraltareños, esta frontera, el impacto que tiene en el desarrollo de esa identidad. Ahora que desaparece la frontera, ¿cómo impactará en la identidad de los gibraltareños? Pero también me gustaría saber la identidad de los linenses también.
Bueno, la frontera para un gibraltareño tiene un simbolismo fuerte, es que realmente ha sido el símbolo del contencioso de Gibraltar durante el siglo XX. Este es un invento del siglo XX, no tiene nada que ver con el Tratado de Utrecht, como bien sabemos. Y para Gibraltar, la verja es muy importante. Siempre ha conferido seguridad, identidad, como una defensa frente a lo exterior, ¿no? A cualquier cosa que venga negativa del exterior. Entonces, esto nuevo yo entiendo que a los gibraltareños puede causarle como cierta incertidumbre o desazón, y ciertamente puede afectar a su identidad. De hecho, hay gente, amigos que como bien sabes tengo en Gibraltar muchos, que no ven esto como del todo bien porque no sabemos el futuro cómo puede venir, ¿no? La inseguridad, el hecho de que no haya una fence, ¿no? Una verja que pare cualquier cosa. Pero yo creo que hay que confiar, estamos en una etapa nueva, con lo cual la identidad gibraltareña también se va a ver afectada en cuanto a que, bueno, habrá que integrar elementos que hasta ahora eran desconocidos, ¿no? Como una ciudad sin frontera, es decir, una calle más. Esto se convierte, yo le llamaría, ¿no? Como un paseo europeo de la concordia, más que... No, para ponerle un nombre nuevo y que sea común a los dos, Paseo Europeo de la Concordia, porque esto es lo que estamos haciendo, historia con la confianza, con la concordia de dos ciudades que se encuentran, que siempre han estado hermanadas, porque la historia de Gibraltar y de la línea, la una sin la otra, no se puede entender. Y por tanto yo soy positivo, lo sabes, y siempre me ha movido la confianza y sobre todo apoyar y entender a las personas. No las colectividades, no las identidades colectivas, sino las personales, la de cada uno, porque cada uno es de su padre y su madre y cada uno piensa como quiere, ¿no? Y yo creo que me quedo con esto.
Así, muy bonito. Estamos a escasas horas de vivir un momento histórico. Sé que lo va a disfrutar. Sé también que va a estar en Gibraltar, va a estar codeándote con todas las personas allí. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros.
Placer, Kevin.
Seguiremos hablando porque estamos ante una nueva era. Va a hablar mucho de qué hablar.
Y un saludo a Rosestengo y a Shalina también.
Que están allí en el estudio. And there you have it, Francisco, the sociologist, historian. He highlights that he knows Gibraltarians have had a lack of trust in past, but that now in this new era we need to trust, and that many positive things may come of it.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Rees speaking to us live from Spain in La Línea there. Well, meanwhile, at the airport, as we saw earlier, the Chief Minister and the Gibraltar delegation landed on their flight back from Brussels, where they signed the treaty. Jonathan Sacramento is down there now. Jonathan.
Yes, Shalina, just seconds ago, the Chief Minister with his retinue emerged to a victorious round of applause from gathered friends and family, and also his supporters, political supporters, but also his cabinet ministerial colleagues who had also been lying in wait here outside the air terminal, waiting for him to emerge from the airport. This is a chartered flight that they've taken to Brussels and back on the same day for that signing of the Concordat and the treaty itself. And we managed to catch the Chief Minister as he was emerging from the air terminal, and he greeted the crowds as they as they were lying in wait. So this is what the Chief Minister had to say.
Well, I'm joined now by the former Chief Minister, Sir Peter Caruana, as well as my colleague, Rosa Stenko. Sir Peter, first, if you could just tell us your thoughts on this historic day.
Good evening. Well, I think it's a seminal day for Gibraltar. I think we've left an old-fashioned part of our history behind, and life in Gibraltar will never be the same again. What we are doing is looking for ourselves and for our children and our grandchildren to a more normal future, a more normal political future with leading lives much more like every other European lives. And in a sense, we are sowing the seeds of opportunities for our future generations that we and our past generations did not have and struggled with.
The Spanish Foreign Minister mentioned in his interview the last wall in continental Europe coming down with this as well. So not just a moment for us here in Gibraltar, but actually for Europe as a whole.
I think it's very important, and I think the Spanish Foreign Minister said something that I struck a chord with me, and that was that this provides opportunity, safe opportunity, and that's very important for us in Gibraltar. And it's also an example to the world at these very difficult times, he said, and he's absolutely right, that when everyone is resorting to firing drones and rockets at each other to solve international problems, little Gibraltar, the EU, Britain and Spain are demonstrating that between democrats, that is not the way. The way is this, negotiation and agreement.
A textbook case. You highlighted the Concordat as an essential part of the treaty puzzle. So I do want to pick your brain about that. But first, Ros, I think you've been doing a bit of research on the Concordat and you've got some points to share with us.
Yes, we received the Concordat as it's been published a couple of hours ago. So we'll just go through some of the paragraphs and we'll get some analysis from Sir Peter. Essentially, the Concordat sets out the conditions for suspending or terminating the treaty. It gives Gibraltar the levers to do that. The first part is the agreement. It says the implementation of the agreement will fully respect the constitutional arrangements in place in respect of Gibraltar and in particular the Gibraltar Constitution order. So that's the first thing, Sir Peter. Happy with that?
It's very important. First of all, can I just say, if you will permit me, that there is an overarching point to be made here, and that is to say that this Concordat, like all such agreements, political agreements between the United Kingdom government and other British territorial governments, have to be done in the context of a very complex UK constitutional position. The United Kingdom government cannot sell out the sovereignty of Britain's own parliament. It cannot subject itself, that is responsible for the international affairs of Gibraltar and all the overseas territories. It cannot agree to forgo that in favour of the territories. And that this agreement, these concordats, are a very careful juxtaposition of competing interests and demands, legal, political, that seeks to reconcile these very difficult things. How does the United Kingdom give a place like Gibraltar the comfort that we rightly demanded for this, whilst at the same time staying within the bounds of what is constitutionally possible for it as a UK government to do? And so this is not just starting with a blank piece of paper and the United Kingdom scribbling on it whatever it wants or whatever we want, and it's got to be understood in that concept. The first point that you've mentioned is a very important one, because in the bad old days, if the UK signed an international treaty, it would take the view that everything in it is external affairs, because it was the UK's responsibility, and in a sense, everything that went into a national treaty emptied the constitution of our constitution of our self-governing powers. The recognition in this Concordat by the UK government that everything that is a defined domestic, everything that is the responsibility of Gibraltar ministers in this agreement remains the responsibility of the Gibraltar government and Gibraltar ministers, notwithstanding that it's affected by an international treaty between the UK and the EU. is very important because it means that there is no emptying out of our constitution. There is no cession of our very hard-earned and fought-for powers of self-government accumulated over decades. So I attach a great importance to that.
The Concordat sets out areas that Gibraltar is responsible for under the treaty, such as border checks, surveillance, law enforcement, cooperation.
Today our responsibility.
Exactly, everything that's in the treaty, and they retain international responsibility for compliance and control over defence and foreign affairs. Now, there is a sentence, there is a phrase here that has raised some concern, certainly from the GSD, but it says, the UK will, other than in the most exceptional circumstances, seek prior agreement of the Government of Gibraltar before taking any significant actions under the agreement in areas of the Gibraltar Government's responsibilities under the Constitution. Now, if I can just, before I get you to comment on that, just mention that Stephen Doughty, the Europe Minister, has written to Fabian Picardo saying that there's been some discussion on that phrase, that the United Kingdom government will not, other than in the most exceptional circumstances, do certain things contrary to the wishes of Gibraltar. And this is what he says. He says, the phrase reflects the shared understanding that in relation to the exercise of powers within the treaty, the United Kingdom government would follow the democratically expressed wishes of Gibraltar and would not do or omit to do anything contrary to those wishes in all but truly exceptional circumstances. So he sets out an extremely high threshold, he says it is, which is consistent with the principle that there should be nothing about Gibraltar without Gibraltar. And then he adds, I consider it would only be in the most extreme cases, such as where there was grave impact on the United Kingdom's essential interests, that we would take such action. Quite frankly, I consider it inconceivable that such circumstances would ever arise. And he hopes that that gives Gibraltar the reassurances that they seek. Now, what can I ask, what do you make of that paragraph?
Well, this is an example of the what I was saying before, that the UK is itself walking a tightrope act. The UK cannot say, I will never do anything that Gibraltar doesn't want in relation to a treaty which is the UK's international responsibility. So they've come up with this phrase, except in the most extreme circumstance, and later on in that letter, Stephen Doughty explains that he thinks that this is very improbable ever to happen, and it would have to be some overriding interest of the United Kingdom, which is of excruciating, whatever adjective is used, importance to the United Kingdom. Look, but the point is nevertheless well made. When I saw the text of the Concordat a couple of days ago, I was not entirely satisfied with it myself, and I made some representations which have materialized in the form of this letter. The House, I called to you on your Newswatch and program and Viewpoint program several months ago when the treaty text was published. I said, this is fine, I support the treaty, but the UK can't leave Gibraltar locked in. We have to have the right to get out if this goes terribly badly, it doesn't work as we all expect. Turns out to be a political and economic trap for us. We cannot be at the whim of whether the UK government, and therefore we must have our hand on the trigger, meaning that the UK has to allow us out if we want to get out. But the original text did not do that, and it's fine. Doughty has corrected that, has clarified that in the letter, where he says, and this is where the words or omit to come in, where he says and he explains that the phrases that you have read, and I won't take up more of your airtime by repeating, the ones that you just read before, mean precisely that. That it's not just that the UK government will not itself, because the original language gave us the power of veto. In other words, they would not pull out if we did not agree to the UK pulling out. But that's not the same as giving us the ability to come out if we want to come out. The letter now makes clear that the phrases that you have read out have got to be understood as meaning precisely that.
But the thing is, we don't know what exceptional circumstances means. And what it means to this government might not be the same as what it means to another government.
Well, look, you've got to understand how these things operate. The preamble to our Constitution, on which we've all depended, is not illegal. These are not legal commitments. These are political commitments. The UK government has never failed to live up to a political commitment given by a government of the day to the people of Gibraltar. That is what the preamble is. If you look further on in the letter, if you've got a copy of it, I would look at it for you just to read it out to you. There is a definition of what is an exceptional circumstance, which is not, look, it's as far as you're going to get from a UK government, and I am satisfied with it in the sense that I acknowledge that it is difficult to expect the UK government to do more than that. They have gone to the extreme of saying it would have to be some extreme UK national interest. And I really don't think, in the context of the UK legal constitutional constraints that I started with, I think that that is the best that we can hope to achieve.
Okay.
If we had been drafting a piece of paper in blank with the UK government, we would have added things to it. But given that the UK had to sign it, I am content with it.
So, Peter, we will be looking at the termination clause itself shortly. You're staying with us, but first, I believe we're going to be hearing from the Chief Minister.
Yes, that's correct. Ros, we now bring you that interview with the Chief Minister, who arrived with the Gibraltar delegation moments ago. Jonathan Sacramento met him just after he arrived at the airport.
Well, it's been a very emotive day. I mean, you think about what the whole journey has been and the work even that we've had to do today to work with the UK to finalise the Concordat, the letter that accompanies the Concordat, to work with the staff of the Bulletin to get everything right for the execution of the treaty, and then to have an opportunity in the European Commission, which for so often of the past 30 years has been the behemoth that has sometimes not listened to Gibraltar, the behemoth that we have found difficult to get the attention of. And to actually be there and to have an opportunity to talk about all of the issues that have driven us to here, and to see that now the relationship is a different one. It's a relationship of friendship, of partnership with the European Commission and of course with Spain. We could not have these arrangements if it were not for the changed Spanish attitude, which sought that the European Commission should enter into an arrangement with the United Kingdom in keeping with the New Year's Eve agreement that we had entered into. So a lot of emotions. This is a lot of what we might never have expected to do. Indeed, if you ask the Fabian Picaldo who went into politics, this would never have been the sort of deal that I would have expected that we would have to negotiate. But it is an excellent deal nonetheless. It is a great deal for Gibraltar. It's a lot of opportunities now going forward. It's getting rid of the problems that we have had with that frontier that has been a chokehold from Gibraltar, that has given us a false sense of security, but a sense of security nonetheless. So you did ask me what emotions I was going for.
Well, I was going for...
You opened Pandora's box.
I was going for, it's nice to be received like this.
Yes, it is superb to be received like this by the people who love you, by the people who supported us throughout, by the people who've been there. I didn't expect to see this type of crowd. We were told when we landed that it was happening, and it's really quite something, and it just fills me with joy to be back home. Thank you.
Yes? Well, it's a historic day for the Rock, but also for our neighbours, as a new chapter in relations begins for both Gibraltar and for Spain. Our reporter Kevin Ruiz is in La Línea with its mayor, Juan Franco. Kevin.
And a man who's possibly been following the story as closely as any Gibraltarian, of course, is the mayor of La Línea, Juan Franco. We've been talking to him for almost 10 years now. He was one of my first interviewees when I first started with GBC. Juan, cuento de que fuiste uno de los primeros entrevistadores que tuve cuando empecé esta carrera.
Correcto.
10 años, hemos llegado al día de hoy, hace 5 empezaron las negociaciones. ¿Cómo se encuentra el alcalde de La Línea hoy en esta noche?
Pues no me lo termino de creer y la verdad que quitándome un peso de encima. Hay que tener en cuenta que el acuerdo, como sabéis, es tremendamente complejo. Quedan muchas cosas que tratar, situación de los pensionistas, temas medioambientales y demás, que no tratamos, vamos, después hablamos si quieres, pero lo principal era que las personas pudieran pasar por este puesto sin controles, sin restricciones. Siempre he puesto el mismo ejemplo. Actualmente están trabajando aproximadamente, según fuentes del Gobierno de Gibraltar, que además están confirmadas por el Gobierno de España, casi 16.000 personas en Gibraltar que no son residentes. Si solo fueran 10.000, no contáramos los turistas y demás, y se tardara 5 segundos en controlar un pasaporte, la primera persona tardaría 5 segundos, pero la última tardaría 14 horas. Es decir, sería prácticamente un cierre virtual de la frontera. En el caso que estamos ahora, pues hay que celebrar que se desmantela esta instalación, que a mi entender es anacrónica, no tenía sentido. Sí tiene lógica que haya controles en momentos puntuales por cuestiones diversas, pero no este control constante y demás, y que, por lo pronto, las 16.000 personas, 11.000 y pico largas, de las cuales viven en la línea, puedan pasar a sus puestos de trabajo sin problemas. Después muchísima gente que tiene vínculos deportivos, familiares, sociales, culturales, turísticos, de todo tipo, también puedan pasar por carretera sin más problemas, que las mercancías seguirán siendo controladas en aduanas, como hasta la fecha, con un trámite adicional que esperemos que se solvente pronto y no se generen colas, ni retenciones, ni historias. Y ahora lo que nos queda por delante es un trabajo importante de coordinación, que espero que podamos estar presentes, Gobierno de Libertad, por supuesto, para ir trabajando en cuestiones que afectarán al día a día de las personas que estamos aquí. Te pongo un ejemplo muy claro, además en el punto en el que estamos. Ahora mismo, esta mañana me llamaba uno que hay que ver, que la retención, que no sé cuánto, que para arriba, que para abajo. Digo, perdona, que tenemos la feria.
You're watching a special GBC News Bulletin on the day the treaty has been signed and is set to be implemented. Still to come, more reactions and analysis from both sides of the border as Gibraltar and La Línea prepare for a new era. We'll be back in a few minutes.
The moments that matter don't wait for Wi-Fi. From sharing big news instantly to streaming your favourite shows on the go, your connection should always be there. That's why we've made our pay monthly plans bigger, giving you more data at the same price, so nothing gets in the way of staying close to what matters most. Visit jibtele.com or call 200 52200 to sign up.
If you have employees, then you have HR and payroll. And the computer software you use makes all the difference. EasyPay has been specifically designed to meet the needs of businesses in Gibraltar, whatever the size. For a free demonstration, call 200 741 21 and find out more online at easypay.gi.
Welcome to the Corner Shop, where expectations in painting and decorating go above and beyond, providing the community colour since 1947. From DIY enthusiasts to professional decorators, we offer trusted brands like Dulux, Armstead, Hammerite and more. Explore our expert colour mixing centre, plus DIY and decorating supplies. The Corner Shop, free parking and free delivery.
An issue processing your hotel deposit for your upcoming trip.
Take a moment, because what matters most is worth protecting.
Fill up, top up and let's go. The new Jib Fuel Plus loyalty app is here. Earn loyalty points every time you shop or refuel at Cepsa Gibraltar, Carrefour Express Gibraltar and all the Gibraltar petrol stations. Just sign up, scan your QR code, collect points and redeem rewards. Download the Jib Fuel Plus app at jibfuelplus.com and start your journey today.
Our world runs on momentum. From the first light over the rock to the plans we make for the days ahead, each moment carries us forward. For 150 years, Capurro Insurance has moved with that energy. Rooted in Gibraltar, reaching the wider world, built on the past, and looking to the future, wherever momentum takes you next. Capurro Insurance will be by your side, every step of the way.
Trident is EORI ready for Gibraltar's new logistical chapter. As customs-approved transport and clearance agents with proven experience, trust Trident to keep your goods moving. Providing door-to-door transport, temperature-controlled services, warehousing, and customs clearances. Trust the experts, delivering since 1989.
If you're looking for the perfect spot to enjoy breakfast, lunch or dinner, make your way to Bianca's Bar and Restaurant down at Marina Bay, where we've been serving great food since 1979. Our tempting menu and daily specials are available for dining in or takeaway. Relax and watch the world go by at Bianca's Marina Bay, the happiest place out of town. Looking for insurance that covers every part of your life? From your car, home and motorbike to your health, pets, boat and travel, we've got it all covered. We make insurance simple, clear and tailored to you. Visit us at 68 Irish Town, Monday to Friday 9 to 5:30 or Saturdays 10 till 2. Call 200 44628 or email gibraltar@ibexinsure.com. Ibex Insurance, making life easier.
Welcome back to a special edition of GBC News ahead of treaty implementation. Our news editor, Christine Vasquez, is down at the airport after having flown to Brussels and back with the Gibraltar delegation for the signing of the treaty today. Christine, what's the mood been like on this day? Christine. Like today?
Well, it's been an extraordinary day in Brussels, and I'm going to tell you, we've spoken about the politics, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the mood in Brussels, because it has totally changed from when we went just over a year ago. So the change of mood was evident when we heard the Spanish Foreign Minister actually speaking in the Bellamont in the European Commission. So he thanked Fabian Picardo by name. He thanked the Chief Minister for their good-naturedness, for their positive attitude in the negotiations. Remember that this is the man who just over a year ago actually cropped him out of a photo. So those walls have fallen and the mood has changed. So anecdotally, speaking to some people who were at the lunch, I also asked what had happened at the lunch, and the mood at the lunch was totally jovial as well. So the negotiations are finished. Perhaps people can relax a bit. They don't have to play hard to get, if I can put it that way. And so it's been very, very friendly, very, very positive and very, very jovial. So we move forward with that Concordat as well. And a very emotional Chief Minister. And I think when he arrived, when he landed, when he saw that group of people waiting for him, the emotions actually came out, emotions that he has been keeping in check throughout the day. And he was saying that for him, the hard work of all these years has paid off because, of course, he feels that future generations will be able to enjoy the fruits of this agreement. So, yes, very emotional and a very special, very positive day with a bit of celebrating on the flight back.
A bit of celebrating on the flight back. Christine Vasquez, thank you very much. Well, let's turn to some political reaction now. The GSD has said the UK-Gibraltar Concordat falls short of what was called for in Parliament. It says the Chief Minister had indicated there would be no circumstances in which decisions could be taken under the treaty by the UK without Gibraltar's consent. However, it points out that the Concordat allows for the UK to depart from the Gibraltar view in exceptional circumstances. Keith Asupardi says the Gibraltar government should always be involved in all discussions on issues agreed under the treaty and that any decision affecting Gibraltar must be with the consent of its government and people. He says if elected to office, the GSD would seek to agree amendments to the Concordat. Well, I'm joined by Sir Peter Caruana, former Chief Minister, and my colleague Rosa Stengo. Sir Peter, we did discuss the Concordat briefly earlier, but just on the back of the GSD's criticism, what's your view on it?
Well, I think some of that comment is absolutely correct. As I said myself in my first intervention, the actual text of the Concordat actually does fall short because it gives us a veto. It doesn't oblige the UK to act spontaneously when we want them to do something. It gave us a veto for what they might want to do, but it didn't require them to do what we wanted them to do. I think that has been corrected sufficiently in this letter, where they have they've explained what this word exceptional circumstances mean, and Stephen Doughty, on behalf of the British government, has said it would only be in the most extreme cases, such as where there was grave impact on the United Kingdom's essential interests, that we would take such action. Quite frankly, I consider it inconceivable that such circumstances would ever arise. So I think that this goes a long way, but for this clarification and other clarifications and explanations in this letter, I think Keith Asopardi's point is right. The Concordat, as originally produced and signed, does fall short of what the Parliament called for, which was Gibraltar finger on the trigger if we wanted to get out this letter. But look, if a future GST government, and I hope that there will be one, next is able to improve on the letter by transferring some of what is in this letter into an amended Concordat, which the UK government can do at any time. The Concordat is entirely between the UK and Gibraltar, nothing to do with Europe, nothing to do with Spain. The UK government can improve on it at any time, indeed can do so before the treaty is ratified even. Then we'd all be even better off than we are today. So I think the comment is politically reasonable, politically responsible. The GSD is not saying it opposes this, it's saying it will seek to improve it, to bring it closer to what the letter says and closer to what the House resolution said, and I think that's a fair comment.
Sir Peter, we have to bring up the actual termination clause. You said that you've read the Concordat, haven't you? If we can just call up the termination clause and have a look at it and see what you think, whether it does its job. It says, consistently with the principle that the United Kingdom government has adhered to throughout the negotiations, nothing about Gibraltar without Gibraltar, and consistently with the principle of the double lock, the United Kingdom will exercise its powers on the termination of the agreement pursuant to Article 66 or Article 334 of the agreement, only following full consultation with the government of Gibraltar. In any event, the United Kingdom government will not, other than in the most exceptional circumstances, take the necessary steps with a view of terminating the agreement unless termination is supported by, and here's where it gets quite interesting, a motion carried by a majority of at least 3/4 of the total number of members of the Gibraltar Parliament, or a simple majority of the votes cast in a referendum of all persons entitled to vote in elections to the Gibraltar Parliament. What do you think about that, Sir Peter?
I think that's what we called for. It's fine if it's not limited to vetoing. In other words, provided that does not mean that the UK will not itself trigger departure, trigger termination without Gibraltar's consent. It's got to be more than that. It's also got to mean that if Gibraltar asks for it by one of these two ways that you've just read out, the United Kingdom will do it. And the Concordat itself does not say that, but the letter makes clear that it needs to be read in that way. The language that is used in the Concordat, Stephen Doughty is saying in this letter, should be read, must be read, to mean precisely that. Not only will it be a veto for us, but if we ask for it, if we trigger it, rather than wanting to veto something that the UK has triggered, if we trigger a wish for that we Gibraltarians, we want to out of this, the UK will, except in the most exceptional circumstances, defined as I have just read to you, do that. This part has got to be read with what it says in the first page about the United Kingdom will do or omit to do. The United Kingdom will not do or omit to do anything that the people of Gibraltar ask for in a referendum, etc., etc., and that is key. I would not have supported the Concordat had it not, were it not for the terms of this letter, and I made that clear.
And just to be clear, it is a political agreement. It's not legally binding, isn't it? So is it future-proof?
Look, it's as future-proof as the United Kingdom is trustworthy. The United Kingdom has always been trustworthy. It is as future-proof as the preamble to the Constitution, which is also not legally binding. The United Kingdom, our Constitution, is not legally binding in the sense that the United Kingdom could repeal it at any moment and take over through what's called direct rule. When you're an overseas territory and not an sovereign independent state in your own right, nothing is future-proof without the trust of the parties involved. One of the reasons why we want to stay with the UK and many others is that we trust their political system, we trust the calibration of their moral compass. When the UK government gives the people of Gibraltar solemn assurances of this or that, they have always honoured them in the past and they will always honour them in the future. And if that turns out not to be the case, it makes no difference whether it's legal or not, because they could always tear up laws. The United Kingdom Parliament can never be bound by any past law that it has passed. This is what the sovereignty of Parliament means. No Parliament and no government of the United Kingdom can prevent a future government or a future Parliament of the United Kingdom doing whatever it wants. And that's what I tried to explain, sorry to slip into legalese at the beginning of this interview, that all of this has got to be seen in the context of the UK government having to grapple with those constitutional realities in the UK.
Okay, well, let's turn now to another focal point in the negotiations, and that's been the second line checks area known as the Schengen Shack. Situated by the airport, this will be the joint facility that carries out any necessary checks on non-Schengen arrivals. Our reporter, Ian Trier-Clarence, is down there now. Ian.
Hi there, yeah, we're down by the frontier. We've been here the last couple of hours. It's much the same as any other Tuesday evening for the most part. We've seen the cross-frontier workers leaving after their day's work, a few people popping over from Gibraltar for their evening meals in La Linea. As you say, the Schengen Shack is going to be where the changes tomorrow are most keenly felt. Those flights arriving from the UK in the morning will have travellers on board that will have to be processed in the new Schengen facility, the Schengen Shack that's been tacked on to the side of the airport. Travellers from outside Schengen, including British nationals, will have to go into the Schengen Shack, be processed by EU officials and then cross back into Gibraltar, regardless of whether they're going into Spain or staying in Gibraltar. But here at the frontier, not much seems to have changed from the last few days. Obviously, we're on the verge of a huge shift tomorrow, but those that are going to feel it most keenly are the cross-frontier workers, the workers that cross here every day. We've had a few of them coming over to us. You have seen a few people stopping to take pictures. You get the sense that there is change in the air, that some big change is coming, and the cross-frontier workers are the ones that are going to feel it most keenly. I'm joined now by Darren Serisola and Loren Perianes, of the cross-frontier group. Darren, what's been the word? Are people feeling a bit better now than they were when there wasn't too much, when there was a bit of uncertainty still in the air?
Well, I believe that there is still that bit of obviously mixed feelings, mixed emotions. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it is something historical, something really big. We're going from having a lifetime of having a frontier, having controls, to saying tomorrow, you know, there's got to be that freedom of movement, which is something that I think practically everybody has wanted. But nevertheless, there are still things that, you know, that do cause that element of anxiety and uncertainty. So, yeah, I think tomorrow, like I said, it's a huge, big day, historical day, hopefully for the better. But there is still a lot ahead of us. So, let's see tomorrow.
It's a work in progress. Y, señor Perianes, que son 15.000 trabajadores, la mayoría españoles. Por su lado, ¿cuál es el ambiente? ¿Cómo se sienten los españoles?
Bueno, yo creo que hay... la primera impresión que yo, hablando con algunos de ellos, es de tranquilidad, de estar felices, ¿no? Felices por esta nueva situación. ¿Por qué? Porque ellos piensan de que ahora van a poder, sin ningún problema, ir a sus puestos de trabajo. Tú sabes que ahora desaparece una verja, pero no solamente es una verja, simboliza algo más, ¿no? que algo en el paisaje físico que desaparece, sino que también es un instrumento que se ha utilizado muchas veces contra los propios trabajadores como presión política, ¿no? Y afortunadamente esto ya no lo van a tener, ¿no? Entonces eso le produce una sensación, yo creo, de bastante tranquilidad, de que van a poder acudir a sus puestos de trabajo como debe de ser, ¿no? Como tranquilidad y que puedan acudir con ganas de trabajar y de crear riqueza, ¿no?, en toda la zona y en Gibraltar, ¿no?
Que son, como has dicho, que los trabajadores son los que han sufrido cuando empieza con la cola, cuando ponen esa presión. That cross-frontier workers are those that suffer the most when these queues are put in, and it's often pressure that we had from the central government for whatever reason. What changes the most in the coming days, in the coming weeks? What will change most for small business owners, for people that are perhaps looking to do business across the border?
Well, like I said, now there is that sort of element of see how the changes or the treaty is and what has been signed within the treaty, how it's going to affect the businesses in terms of competing with obviously entering Europe in terms of business. How is it going to affect? Is it going to be positive, like the saying? Is there going to be that sort of room for progression, room for improvement, room to grow? Or are the challenges going to be too much, especially for the small businesses? So that, I think, is the uncertainties and the anxieties that, it's within the business sector. Like Lauren was saying, for the workers within those sectors, the health sector, construction and all that, for the workers it's going to be obviously something really good. The aspect as well that the frontier will no longer be able to be used as a tool, to oppress people, to do damage to Gibraltar. So that's a great peace of mind for workers. But like I said, there still has the question of what's going to happen with the economy. How is it going to impact the economy? And that's something that obviously will have to be still looked into, and how things are going to be mitigated in terms of if there are businesses suffering in a particular sector, how is that going to be mitigated and how they're going to be supported.
Y señor Perianis, los planes para esta noche, creo que vaya a pulsar para el aeropuerto después de la entrevista, ¿verdad?
Sí, tenemos una recepción que nos ha invitado el gobierno de Gibraltar. Bueno, y será un momento pues de estar juntos, ¿no? Vamos casi todos los miembros del grupo transfronterizo, que fue un proyecto, ¿no?, que empezamos hace ya 13 años. Un proyecto yo pienso que importante, ¿no?, dejando un margen siempre en la política y mirando los intereses de los negocios y de los ciudadanos en general de ambos lados, ¿no?, tanto de Gibraltar como del campo de Gibraltar. Pues es un momento muy bonito y emotivo de estar todos los miembros del grupo transfronterizo reunidos con normalidad y como somos, ¿no?, prácticamente hermanos, ¿no?, como nos consideramos.
Sí, el momento para trabajar juntos, para estar unidos. Yo creo que es el momento quizás más crítico para esa unión y el estar unidos para solucionar problemas que vamos a afrontar. Y esos flequillos de los que hablamos, que todavía hay flequillos y cosas que van a salir, matices y eso, que debemos de sentarnos y decir cómo se van a afrontar esto y cómo se va a hacer para solucionar el problema, aunque yo creo que es el momento más crítico para estar más unidos y verdaderamente enseñar esa unión para asegurarnos de que haya esa prosperidad por ambas partes.
Claro, hay sectores que...
To ensure the prosperity for both sides.
Sí. Que aunque, perdona un apunte, aunque hay sectores que aunque el acuerdo es bueno para la mayoría, puedan tener algún problema, pueden salir más perjudicados. Ahí tiene que estar el grupo transfronterizo y no abandonar a estas empresas y a estos sectores que a lo mejor pues, se pueda perjudicar en algo, ¿no?
The cross-frontier group ready to carry on representing their workers, but very optimistic, very hopeful that this will be the start of a new positive era for the cross-frontier group workers.
Thank you, Ian. Ian Troy-Clarence speaking to us live from La Linea there. Well, as Gibraltar prepares for the UK-EU treaty to enter provisional application, reactions continue to come from across the political spectrum in Westminster. Sir Bob Neill has been a close friend and steadfast supporter of Gibraltar for many years. As the former chairman of the all-party parliamentary group on Gibraltar, he was awarded the freedom of the city just last year. Ros, you spoke to Sir Bob earlier today. What was his main takeaway?
I did, and Sir Bob has been a steadfast supporter, as you mentioned, of Gibraltar over the years. He's always been there for those big moments, and he's certainly here, not in Gibraltar physically, but here in spirit.
Ever present.
I asked him whether the treaty broadly delivered what he would have expected it to deliver after Brexit.
I think it does on the basis that there was always going to have to be trade-offs. There was never going to be a perfect outcome because the best outcome for Gibraltar would for Brexit not to have happened in the first place. But given that we were where we were, I think the key thing is that we needed an outcome that got a free-flowing border and didn't compromise sovereignty. And I think those are the key things which have been achieved by this. There are other benefits too, I think, but those are the key things. So despite the length of time it's taken, again, not of the doing of the people of Gibraltar, or I think the Gibraltar side in the negotiations, but nonetheless, although it's been a long time, I think it's got us to a much better place. And it does give certainty about that free flow at the border. And, of course, with those two clauses at the beginning of the treaty, it makes it quite clear that there's no prejudice to the position of British sovereignty. And I think when I was last over in Gibraltar, I had the chance to meet the previous commander of British forces, and the military side are very clear there's no prejudice for the operation to the base either. So it has met, I think, the key red lines.
Obviously, everything has been on paper. As from tomorrow, we're actually going to see the treaty's implementation. I'd like to ask you where you see Gibraltar in, let's say, 4 years' time, after the first 4 years of the treaty. You know, what do you think will work very well for Gibraltar, apart from freedom of movement across the frontier, fluidity of movement, I should say? What do you think will work very well for Gibraltar under this treaty?
Well, if we can get it right, and the important caveat I mean by that is both the UK and Gibraltar, and indeed our neighbours in Spain now, getting it right in actually delivering practically the benefits of this, I think there could be very real advantages. I mean, there was the debate in Parliament last week, as you probably know, Ross, about it, and there was talk of about 200 million, some 6% of GDP potential growth. Now, that's a real win. Now, we could develop further. If we're able to see advantages with the airport being used more for other destinations as well, that could lead to, I think, a genuine, if you like, shared prosperity across Gibraltar and into the Campo. So there are real positives there, but that's not going to be achieved just by signing a treaty. That's actually going to need continuing hard work, I suspect, over probably months and perhaps even years going forward to translate that into what actually happens on the ground. To develop business opportunities, that's going to be a challenge. And also, maybe for Gibraltarians, just to get used to the idea of the fluid frontier.
I can just ask you, we're talking about resetting relationships. There's a lot of resetting here with Gibraltar's relationship with the EU and indeed with Spain, but also with the UK, because we've heard it said a number of times now, this has been a very different negotiation for Gibraltar because it's actually had a seat at the table. It may not have been driving, but it was a co-pilot, if you like. So in terms of Gibraltar's future relationship with Westminster, you know, what do you think that will look like over the next decade? And what role can Parliament continue to play?
Well, things may evolve. Any changes to the constitutional relationship, I think, is something that's for the people of Gibraltar initially, and I don't see a huge appetite for that. I know there's some talk of representation at Westminster and so on. There has been for all the time I've been involved with Gibraltar. I don't think that actually is the principal issue, and that's for people in Gibraltar to look at. What is important is that we continue to have the very close cooperation between politicians and parliamentarians on both sides. That's why the work of the all-party parliamentary group on Gibraltar is so important. That's why the regular visits that we have between British politicians and Gibraltar are important. And that's why the work of Gibraltar House in London is very important in making those cases. But inevitably things will evolve a little. But I think equally that will probably be driven by the economic and the social and the personal relationships that will develop. There are things I'm sure that we would want, who are friends of Gibraltar, to make the case to the British government for. What about the position of Gibraltar students going to the UK? That's a very important thing to look at. What about recognition of nursing and other qualifications from Gibraltar in the UK, and how we improve links with the NHS back in the United Kingdom? Now, those are practical things that I think politicians, both in Gibraltar and in the UK, ought to be working on. So those are the areas that I'd be interested in seeing a practical benefit on. And that might change operational arrangements, but I don't think that's the key issue. It's actually what makes it work for people in practice is the key thing.
Long-standing friend of Gibraltar, Sir Bob Neal, sharing his perspective on this historic agreement. Well, more reactions now, including from former mayor of La Línea, Juan Carmona. He joins our reporter, Kevin Ruiz, in La Línea now. Kevin.
And on a night like tonight, a man who's already lived a similar moment, just as big as the one as we're about to live tonight. He's a former mayor of La Línea, Juan Carmona. He was a mayor between 1979 and 1983, meaning he was in office for the partial reopening of the Gibraltar-Spain frontier in 1982. Juan, estoy contándole un poquito tu trayectoria. Estuviste en el 82 para un momento tan histórico como el que estamos a punto de vivir en escasas horas. Bueno, quizá un poquito el día de la marmota para ti.
Bueno, este día se ha ido retrasando en los últimos 20, 25 años, hasta que casi perdíamos ya la esperanza de que esto pudiera llegar algún día. Pero mira, ha llegado, aquí estamos.
¿Y cómo se siente en una noche como hoy, que vamos a ver la desaparición de la frontera como la conocemos? Tú viviste ese cierre de la frontera.
Bueno, no viví el cierre, bueno, el cierre no, porque cuando se cerró yo tenía 17, 18 años y vivía en Madrid.
Claro, pero viviste lo que era la frontera cerrada y importantemente sí, la reapertura parcial, ¿no? En el 82.
Es así, las dos reaperturas. La reapertura, porque la apertura fue primero peatonal, como tú sabes, para españoles y gibraltareños, y luego ya se amplió casi como hasta ahora mismo. Y fueron 3 años entre una fecha y otra, entre el 82 y el 85, 86, no recuerdo muy bien. Y aquello fue respirar, porque la línea a partir del año 69 que se cerró la verja, lo sabéis perfectamente, se hundió, se quedó en casi la mitad de la población, porque la vida de la línea siempre ha sido Gibraltar. Se llama la línea porque había aquí una línea de defensa. Y esa línea, la palabra defensa se quitó hace 150 años y se cambió por de la Concepción. Pero esto era la línea de defensa, esto era una zona militar de frontera con Gibraltar. Bueno, de frontera, no se llamaba frontera en aquella época, pero bueno, línea limítrofe con el territorio de Gibraltar. Bueno, y cuando desaparece Gibraltar, la línea se hunde, obviamente. Y Gibraltar también sufrió muchísimo. No se hundió del todo, pues gracias a la ayuda británica, pero la línea no tuvo la ayuda por parte del gobierno español de aquella época, que era Franco, necesaria para sobrevivir adecuadamente. Y de 70 a 75.000 habitantes, pues se quedó en 40.000.
Juan, en esos días, en el 82, había mucha esperanza de que esa reapertura de la frontera iba a traer prosperidad a la zona.
Trajo.
Y trajo, pero ese impulso acabó por perderse. ¿Tiene ese temor con que pase esto hoy en día?
Lo que pasa es que ha ido muy lento, quiere decir, porque verás tú, creo que lo hemos comentado antes fuera de cámaras, para que haya de verdad entre las dos poblaciones, entre los dos pueblos, tiene que haber confianza. Dos tipos de confianza desde mi punto de vista. La confianza social, o sea, la gente, la población, que en buena parte en Gibraltar es de origen linense, y como el gobierno español en los últimos años, desde que se abrió la verja, muchas veces parecía que avanzaba, pero otras veces parecía que retrocedía, ha habido una desconfianza total y absoluta. Es más, la gente no se lo termina de creer. Plano social. Luego está el plano económico. Yo conozco, pues, además soy abogado, en Gibraltar hay grandes empresas que hubieran estado dispuestas a invertir en la línea, en negocios, en infraestructura, etcétera, etcétera, si hubiera habido también confianza, porque el dinero es muy cobarde y si no hay una garantía y una seguridad total de que aquí esto ya no va a variar, pasa eso. Hablando de variar, hay una cosa muy importante que se está hablando poco. Anteriormente ha habido acuerdos, fíjate la palabra acuerdo, pero esto no es un acuerdo, esto es un tratado. El tratado además entre el Reino Unido y la Unión Europea, y los tratados son inamovibles, prácticamente son inamovibles, salvo que ocurra un terremoto como pasó con el Brexit, un tratado no lo cambia nadie. Quiere decir que ya ni siquiera debe haber miedo a que mañana, pasado mañana o dentro de 2 años, vuelva a ganar aquí un gobierno que no tenga esa misma amplitud de miras que tiene ahora mismo el gobierno que tenemos e intente dar algún tipo de marcha atrás. No puede. Es un tratado entre Bruselas y el Reino Unido. Eso es lo que debe dar fundamentalmente confianza.
Bueno, otra cuestión, en el 80 también advirtió de que la línea no podía, la economía de la línea no podía seguir tan ligada a la economía de Gibraltar. ¿Sigue siendo quizá es el gran reto, incluso con este nuevo tratado que hablamos de prosperidad compartida?
Ese es el gran reto. La frase prosperidad compartida salió del grupo transfronterizo, del que yo formo parte desde que se montó hace 10 años. Vamos a ver, no cabe duda de que entre Gibraltar, y vamos a hablar de la línea, no del campo de Gibraltar, entre Gibraltar y la línea hay una enorme diferencia en todos los aspectos, fundamentalmente económicos, renta per cápita, Producto Interior Bruto, etcétera, etcétera. Ese es un desequilibrio que hay que corregir. Porque si no se corrige ese desequilibrio, la línea va a seguir siendo lo que ha sido siempre, cosa que yo detesto, una ciudad dependiente de Gibraltar. Y yo siempre he defendido que la línea tiene que ser una ciudad complementaria de Gibraltar. Ahora, ¿cómo se corrige ese desequilibrio? Con el tiempo y con ayuda. Y yo lo digo, y se lo digo a mi propio alcalde de aquí de la línea, ya que no soy. Vamos a ver, este es un tratado entre Gibraltar y Bruselas. Y Bruselas tiene mucho dinero para corregir desequilibrios territoriales, desequilibrios transfronterizos. Dinero, fundamentalmente para infraestructuras, porque por lo demás la economía va sola.
Y Juan, en una noche tan histórica como hoy, ¿cómo lo viví? Un alcalde que vivió la reapertura parcial del 82, ¿cómo viví esta desaparición de la verja en una noche tan histórica como hoy, en el 2026?
Tiene un punto emocionante, tiene un punto emocionante. Y yo me alegro mucho de que el gobierno de Gibraltar, Fabián Picardo, nos haya invitado a los miembros del grupo transfronterizo para que estemos allí. No sé lo que va a haber ni lo que va a hacer. Yo el partido de España con Francia lo quiero ver, pero ya me han dicho que eso empezará más tarde. Pues bueno, aquí estaremos, pero es un hito histórico.
Juan Carmona, muchas gracias por atendernos en esta noche histórica y que disfrute del partido y de la fiesta también en libertad.
Y que ganemos ya de paso.
Juan Carmona, the former mayor of La Línea, who was in office during the partial reopening of the frontier in 1982.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, our news editor, Christine Vasquez, has been down at the frontier and has spoken to people ahead of tonight's historic changes. Christine, what are people saying?
Yes, so here we are at the frontier, and it's really interesting to be here because we've just come from Brussels and we've seen the politics at play, and so much behind the scenes, so much to make this happen today. And now being here on the ground, we see something totally different. We see the changes here, and I don't know, I'm going to ask my cameraman again, Darren Durantes, behind that lens. I'm going to ask him again to turn round because you will see that the marquee that was over customs has now disappeared. So everything is getting ready. The area is totally changing, even as we speak, even as we are here. And we've also seen the customs officers practicing some marching. So what I can tell you is that we're going to have a few surprises here at the frontier tonight. It's not for me to give the game away, but certainly there will be the event, the occasion will be marked. And we talk about change tomorrow, about a new frontier, things will work differently, but today is also historic because a lot of the cars coming in today, there's no cars now at the moment, but a lot of the cars that have been coming in today will be coming into Gibraltar showing their passports for the very last time, and that in itself is historic. A few minutes ago, I spoke to some of the drivers. Excuse me, do you want to talk to us? How do you feel about being one of the last people to come?
This is the reason why I'm here today, because the last one when I have to show it, yes, it's fine. It's a great day.
Pues la verdad es que privilegiada, la verdad, porque entro ahora de noche y ya supuestamente mañana por la mañana pues no tendré que pasar lo que hemos pasado durante, en mi caso, casi 15 años trabajando aquí. O sea que muy contenta, la verdad, un alivio.
Quite a big movement, isn't it? Yeah, exciting. Yeah. Yeah, let's hope it goes well.
Interesting to see all the changes that we'll experience now after having the border for so long. My mum's seen it with it closed, and this is all I've known. Conque, let's see what it brings. Hopefully good.
Surprised, intrigued, a ver lo que pasa. Nerviosa. Poquito de todo. Excited, a ver how it goes.
It's strange. We're waiting residency at the minute, so we still have to use these. But yeah, it's going to be very historic. It's strange to be here for it. Really cool.
Well, it is a seismic change for Gibraltar and the Campo and a historic moment in UK-Spain relations. Here with me in the studio is my colleague Rosa Stengo and former Chief Minister Sir Peter Caruana. Good to see you both again. Sir Peter, let me just put to you, for as long as we can remember, we have always had this difficult relationship with Spain. Now, this treaty has been hailed as a new era in relations, but can you imagine a future dynamic where we don't have that sort of distrust, that wariness of our neighbour? Is that always going to be a part of the Gibraltarian identity?
No, I hope not. I think it should always be part of the Gibraltarian identity to be vigilant, to make sure that arrangements of this sort, which are good and should be welcomed, are not abused as governments change in Spain. So vigilance is not a bad thing. But I do hope that from this, all change brings more change in its wake. And I do hope that this agreement will mean that we can start just feeling and living more normal. The sovereignty issue has not gone away. I heard Alvarez, the Spanish Foreign Minister, say that Spain's position on sovereignty was fully protected and remains unchanged. And good, because the equivalent of that is that our position remains unchanged and equally protected under the treaty. So we all went into this knowing that it was going to be sovereignty irrelevant, that it wasn't going to affect or prejudice or advance anybody's position on sovereignty, and the treaty achieves that, and that is to be welcome. But beyond that, vigilance. But let us now start living a little bit more normally, a little bit like other Europeans do, with normal political problems and normal personal problems and life problems, but not this idea that we're under some political siege. And Spain has got to now live up to a change in her behaviour. It's not possible for this to happen, and for certain other things that have been happening in the past to continue to happen, or that have been said in the past to continue to be said. We're now off the blacklist. There's now no border, there is now normality. The Spanish Foreign Minister, I think, has spoken very well this evening. Now they've got to make it good permanently.
So, Peter, I mean, you spoke about Mr. Alvarez and the comments that he made about sovereignty positions not changing. Some might take that as a bit of a threat, and we did have a lot of reaction from the public today. They've emailed us by the dozens, probably over 100 messages we received today, and a lot of them were expressing concerns about Spain, about the lack of the potential loss of Britishness in Gibraltar, about the Spain perhaps trying to impose itself on us through this treaty. What do you say to that? Because how long is that fear going to remain with us?
Well, I think it's understandable that people should have fears of that sort, just as I know that people have fears about the security issue and all that. These are entirely understandable changes from seminal concerns, from seminal changes of this kind. But there is nothing in this treaty that gives Spain the right to encroach, creeping or otherwise, on our affairs. We just need to be vigilant that they don't abuse what roles they have, which they don't have as the Spanish state. They have as the Schengen member state that neighbours us. And we've just got to be confident. Look, Gibraltar has got this far. We've defended ourselves politically with governments of all colours in Gibraltar. We've prospered socioeconomically like very few communities in Europe has done, because we've had the confidence that we have the ability and the courage to face anything that third parties or the world places in front of us, overcome them and prosper notwithstanding. And this treaty is not going to be an exception to that. There is a huge amount of talent in Gibraltar, political, economic, social, and we're always going to produce people capable of ensuring that this treaty is never going to be a threat to us. It's always going to be an opportunity for our grandchildren, and we mustn't be frightened of change, particularly when the principal reason for our change is so that our future generations, our children and our grandchildren, can continue to enjoy the socio-economic prosperity that we have enjoyed in Gibraltar over the last 25 to 30 years. And it would be very unfair to deny them that, because we are like rabbits in a headlight, scared of change. So understandable concerns, but people should rest easy. None of these threats are going to materialize.
So Peter, on a personal level, how does it feel to see this chapter of life with the border closing?
I think it's really the same answer. I think that we have been the people that have had to live behind the last physical frontier barrier in Europe. It's not something that we should have been happy or proud to have been doing. It's come down now. We have therefore finally arrived, physically integrated into the great European family, and we should embrace the opportunities that it brings with the confidence that Gibraltarians have always had in our ability to protect ourselves, to promote our political interests and our political security, and our socio-economic prosperity on the back of it.
I'd like to pick up on something Juan Carmona said there about closing the economic gap between the Campo area and Gibraltar. I mean, it does sound a great ideology, you know, that shared prosperity, but how are we really going to grasp that? What does Gibraltar need to do to be able to, you know, take advantage of everything that the treaty offers?
Well, we are very well placed to do that because Gibraltar is very experienced. Businessmen in Gibraltar are very experienced in seizing opportunities, not just cross-border, but internationally, facing north, south, east and west, and we will continue to do that. And in the wake of this comes the removal from the blacklist of tax havens, which is very positive for the finance sector and for the gaming industry. There are lots of positive things for our economy as it is today constituted. But it also, this new atmosphere, this new openness, this removal of part of the Levant, the political Levante cloud that used to cling to the rock, will provide new opportunities for Gibraltar, which I believe we're equally well poised to seize. The extent to which the Campo will be able to seize depends, that their opportunities will depend on the extent to which they genuinely see Gibraltar as an ally, genuinely see Gibraltar as a commercial partner, and are willing to invest in seizing the opportunities jointly. If they do, they can benefit equally too. And I think Juan Carmona was right. The per capita income, the every economic measure between Gibraltar and the Campo de Gibraltar, I'm confident. We've got to be confident. We've got to be enthusiastic and seize the opportunities that will come our way.
So, Peter, thank you very much for speaking to us, and we'll be hearing from you again tomorrow. No, I'm thinking Thursday on Viewpoint.
Yes.
So we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you, Sir Peter, for joining us, and Ros, thank you very much. Well, that's all for this bulletin, but do stay tuned for more coverage and special programming on this historic night. Coming up next, Beyond the Border explores a new chapter for the Rock, while De Acuerdas reflects on its past. We'll bring you the latest developments in a news update at 10, followed by Closure, our documentary looking back at the closed frontier. And GBC News is back at 11 p.m. with another special live bulletin taking you through to midnight and the start of a new era at the frontier. We leave you for now with images from this momentous day so far.
Hello, very good evening to you. The sunny and hot weather will continue through this week with an amber heat alert